Alright, in this video you're going to learn how to paint watercolor in different values. So we're going to do a tint, an original value, and a shade. I'm going to go ahead and do just orange. So I'm going to go ahead and draw just some blobs. Part of this practice is you're also going to practice painting inside the lines. This will help with the upcoming project. I'm going to go ahead and label this one tint, this one original, this one shade. And you can see over here I've kind of listed as reminders as we go through the video of how to create those different values. So with watercolor, if you have not used them before, you're going to put a couple drops into the colors that you plan to use. So for me, I'm just going to put it into the orange and the black because I'm going to end up using orange, black, and also going to use some water. I'm going to let those sit for about a minute, and then you can start mixing in your colors. After you've waited about a minute, you're going to swirl all that paint together. Make sure that you're swirling long enough that your paint becomes kind of milky. It's not clear anymore. It's very opaque, so filled with paint. Now before switching to another color, I always get that extra paint off of my brush, rinse off my brush in my water. So that's why it's really important to always have your entire painting set up before you begin painting. So you should have your paint, paper towel, brush, and clean water. And then I'm going to go ahead and mix in my black. Make sure I have that swirled around until the paint is actually thickened up. I'm going to wipe off that extra paint off my brush. Alright, so I'm going to start off with my original value. It's easiest to start just in the middle. So swirl this around. I like to start by tracing kind of the outline. And then if you have a big puddle, you can always move that around. And this looks like a slightly different color than this because I'm on my last sheet of paper and that cardboard is kind of showing through. I would recommend putting your paper flat onto a table surface so that it's not like soaking into an absorbable surface like cardboard. Alright, so I've done my original color of just orange. So now I'm going to take my orange, I'm going to scoop it into one of my spots on the lid. You'll notice that you have two ridges on your lid. So you can actually wipe your brush on that ridge to kind of squeeze all that paint off of your brush. Okay. So the first one we'll do is the tint. So right now I have my original color. It's pretty opaque, which means not see-through, and I have a pretty strong amount of color, so as we just painted right here. I'm going to go ahead and dip my brush in the water. I'm going to add quite a lot of water to this. Watercolor, to make your tint, you're adding water. With other types of paint, to create a tint, you're actually going to add white to that, but this semester we are just using watercolor. I'm going to mix that in. So we want a very translucent or see-through, transparent paint. I'm going to test this out and see if that's lighter than my original one. Looks like it is. And again, this is kind of looking a little funky because it's soaking through that paper so quickly. But what I like to do, again, is kind of trace around the outside. Pick up paint as I need it, and then fill that in. So I like to do the outer edge and then fill in the center. Alright, so then next I will do my shade. What I don't want to do is add my black to here because this is already very watered down, kind of see-through. If I add black to this one, it's going to look really light, kind of gray, instead of being a nice, strong, dark orange. So I'm going to take my paint from my orange spot again. I'm going to go in my other spot over here. And if you find that you're kind of running out of paint here, add a drop of water and then swirl it in really well. Don't just add the drop of water and go straight over here. Make sure that water is combined with your paint. Then you can scoop it out and put it over here. When you're adding black to your paint, I would start with a little bit and then gradually add more black as you go, because you can't take the black out, but you can always add a little bit more in. Because you still want it to be recognizable as orange, you just want it to be a dark orange. Alright, and then I've got my shade. See how it still is pretty strong in color? It's not super see-through like my tint is, because I started with my original orange again. When you start to paint on your actual painting paper, the paint is going to look a lot better than it does on your sketchbook paper. So make sure that on your actual project you are using the correct paper, that 9x12 painting paper. Alright, so you have your original orange, your tint of orange, and shade of orange. When you're done painting, make sure that you're rinsing your brush off in whatever container of water that you have. I would squeeze off the water on the edge instead of tapping it, because then all that water is going to spray. So just kind of wipe it off on the edge and then dry it off on your paper towel. Just a reminder, tint is your original color plus a lot of water. The original value is just the color with some water mixed in really well. And then the shade is when you add black, a little bit of black, into your original color. And the last thing, after you've cleaned off your brush, you're going to take your paper towel and you're going to clean out your paint palette, because if you close that lid right now, all that watery paint is going to go everywhere. So I just stick my paper towel in there, let it soak up all that paint, and then you can wipe the rest of those spots clean. So pretty easy cleanup with watercolor paints.